Arsenal. The club that divides opinion like no other. Spend even a few minutes online and you'll see it all. Arsenal are overrated, their fans are unbearable, their players are arrogant. And after their recent thrashing of Manchester City, the discourse has only intensified. One phrase in particular has taken over: stay humble. If you somehow missed the drama, let me break it down. In Arsenal's 2-2 draw against City earlier in the season, Erling Haaland confronted Mikel Arteta at full time, got in his face, and repeated those now infamous words, "Stay humble," all while giving him a patronizing pat on the back. Tensions rose immediately. Gabriel Jesus stepped in, words were exchanged, and the moment went viral. Fast forward to the rematch at the Emirates, where Arsenal humiliated City with a 5-1 demolition. And Arsenal did not forget. Gabriel screamed in Haaland's face. Lewis-Skelly mimicked Haaland's signature celebration right in front of him. And to top it off, the Emirates DJ played Humble by Kendrick Lamar at full time. It was peak shithousery. But here's where things get interesting. Only Arsenal could beat the reigning champions 5-1 and still be criticised more than their opposition, because when Haaland did it, the media barely blinked. When Arsenal responded in kind, suddenly it was a problem. Players should be more respectful. Celebrations are getting out of hand. Even discussions about banning certain types of celebrations emerged. Seriously? Since when did football become this sanitized? This raises a bigger question. Why is Arsenal treated differently? Why do they get scrutinized in ways other clubs don't? This is not about refereeing conspiracies or bias in officiating. No, this runs deeper. This is about perception. Arsenal seem to represent something that disrupts the traditional image of English football, and some people just don't like that. Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. Yes, Arteta's personality rubs some people the wrong way. He's animated, obsessive, and unapologetically intense. Some find it grating, others admire it. That's fair. And yes, Arsenal's online fan base, particularly on Twitter and YouTube, can be insufferable at times. Arsenal Fan TV essentially pioneered toxicity in football fandom, and that reputation still lingers. But is that enough to explain the disproportionate hostility Arsenal receive? No chance. Where was this energy when Jamie Vardy was taunting opposition fans for years? Where was it when Neil Maupay mimicked James Maddison's celebrations last season? And it's not just this game, it's a pattern. Arsenal players seem to be held to a different standard. Martin Odegaard once took a photo with the club photographer after a big win. The backlash? Absurd. Pundits asked if Arsenal celebrated too much, accused them of acting like they had won the Champions League. Meanwhile, teams like Newcastle, Villa, and even City celebrate wins with the same passion, but barely anyone calls it out. Why? Because Arsenal provoke a reaction like no other club. There's another layer to this. Arsenal are one of the most progressive, culturally diverse clubs in England. I live in London, and Arsenal are by far the biggest club in the city in terms of support. And London itself is a multicultural, progressive city. Arsenal lean into that in their branding, marketing, and even their squad makeup. They represent a new era of English football, one that some people, particularly in traditional football circles, aren't comfortable with. English football has a problem with unconscious bias. It's not as explicit as in the past, but it still exists. We've seen black players punished for actions that white players get away with. This season alone, we've seen stars like Bukayo Saka, Jude Bellingham, and Marcus Rashford criticized for things their white counterparts do without issue. When young black players buy houses for their families, it's questioned. When white players do it, it's praised. When black players go on holiday after a tough season, they're called lazy. When others do it, it's deserved rest. Arsenal, with their diverse squad and fan base, challenged the traditional football establishment, and whether people realize it or not, that plays into why they get treated differently. The media's coverage, the pundits' outrage, the subtle digs, It all adds up. Football is meant to be emotional, it's meant to be passionate. The best rivalries thrive on pettiness, drama, and yes, shithousery. Players should be able to celebrate. Fans should be able to enjoy the highs. And when you lose, you take it on the chin. That's football. If Haaland can say stay humble in October, then Arsenal can throw it back in March. The game is losing its edge. When Iliman Ndiaye flapped his arms like a seagull after scoring against Brighton, he got booked. Why? Because it was deemed inflammatory. Really? A player flapping his arms? Emiliano Martinez winds up opponents in penalty shootouts, and people either love or hate him for it. But it's part of football. It always has been. And yet, Arsenal gets singled out more than any other club. Their fans are under the microscope. Their celebrations are policed. Their players are criticised more harshly than others. Why? Because they represent something new. A progressive, inclusive, and emotional version of English football, and some people just can't stand that. At the end of the day, Arsenal are not perfect. Their fans can be unbearable, their manager is polarizing, and their team is still fighting to prove themselves as Premier League champions. But the level of criticism they receive, compared to other clubs, is disproportionate. This isn't just about football, it's about culture, identity, and resistance to change. So, what's your take? Do you think Arsenal are treated unfairly? Do you think football should embrace more personality? Or are celebrations getting out of hand? Let me know in the comments.